The rumors are continuing to swirl for the Philadelphia Eagles, as after they resolved their situation with Dallas Goedert by restructuring his contract, people are starting to wonder where Howie Roseman and the Birds could turn their attention next. And there's a few different things that they might do, and that includes potentially trading Bryce Huff following a disappointing first season in Philly, and also possibly handing out an extension to safety Reed Blankenship, with him set to enter their final year of his contract. So in this video, I'll talk about that, as well as a recent rumor linking a former first-round wide receiver to Philadelphia, and more. So let's get started right now. The NFL is a copycat league, with every team pretty much trying to replicate the most successful strategies used by the most successful teams. However, the Philadelphia Eagles have clearly established themselves as one of the league's trendsetters in recent years, as they're always one step ahead of the competition. I mean, think about it. The NFL has become a passing league, no doubt, but just this past year, the Birds reached the mountaintop and won the Super Bowl largely on the back of an elite running game led by Saquon Barkley and a monster offensive line. And this, of course, comes after they signed Barkley to a pretty sizable deal in the offseason during a time when the popular notion is to never pay running backs big money. And that's really just one example, but there's plenty more that I could go on and on about. So the moral of the story is the Eagles are always one step ahead of the rest of the league, and in that way, they're one of the NFL's trendsetters. So it should be no surprise that just a few days ago, owner Jeffrey Lurie was on WIP radio, where he revealed that the Eagles are attempting to do something different from the rest of the league once again, and that is to bring back the fullback position, as he said word for word, quote, "We are going to try to resurrect the fullback position." And honestly, my opinion on that is why not? I mean, you already have the most dominant running game in the entire NFL. Like, nobody can stop Saquon Barkley. That offensive line's insane, so why not add another element with a fullback who can mostly be a lead blocker, but also, in select situations, maybe get the ball or even be a pass catcher? Plus, we saw last year the success that they were able to have the few times they actually did use a fullback, that being converted linebacker Ben Van Sumeren, and then later Kari Blasingame after Van Sumeren got injured. And interestingly enough, Van Sumeren is now officially being listed as a fullback by the Eagles, and his number has been changed to 43, indicating that fullback is likely going to be his main position moving forward. Plus, on top of that, the Eagles also signed good blocking tight ends like Harrison Bryant and Kylan Granson this offseason, who could be used in a fullback type of role, and they also drafted defensive tackle Ty Robinson, who played 8 snaps at fullback in college at Nebraska, and the Huskers scored 7 touchdowns on those plays, so he's another guy that could play that role occasionally. And overall, I love this idea. I mean, I think they could have a lot of success with it and make their run game even harder to stop. Plus, it's just another example of the Eagles being one step ahead of everybody else and setting the trend. But speaking of setting a trend, that's kind of what the Eagles initially did with the tush push or brotherly shove. That is until pretty much every other team realized that they couldn't do it like the Eagles can. And now, of course, many other teams want the play banned because 1, they can't do it, and 2, they also can't stop it. I mean, it's just pure jealousy if you ask me, and Bird superstar running back Saquon Barkley seems to feel the exact same way, as he recently told ESPN, quote, "If you don't like it, get better at stopping it. It's not like a play that we only can do, everybody tries it. We're just super successful at it." And yeah, I mean, again, I could not agree more, and I'm glad to hear Barkley clap back at some of the brotherly shove critics. And he also said that he doesn't think the play is ultimately going to get banned, so I don't know. I certainly hope that's true, but as I talked about in my last video, Adam Schefter did just say that he gets the sense that the play will ultimately be banned, so we'll have to wait and see what happens, and with the NFL owners set to meet again on May 20th and 21st, we're going to have an official decision very soon. So again, hopefully it doesn't get banned, but, you know, if it does, it's whatever. So be it. And the Eagles are still going to be just as dominant with the regular QB sneak anyway. So, you know, we'll see what happens. Moving on, though, things have obviously calmed down pretty significantly for the Eagles in terms of making big offseason moves, especially now that they just finally resolved their situation with Dallas Goedert, and he is going to be staying with the team for the 2025 season. That said, if you know anything about Howie Roseman and the Eagles, it's that they're always active and looking for ways to improve the roster. And we've seen in recent years the Eagles make multiple significant moves in the later months of the offseason, some good, some bad. So what I'm really trying to say is you can't ever rule anything out with them. And just recently, a new trade idea was floated out there by USA Today's Corey Woodruff that would have the Birds acquiring a former first-round pick in quite comedic fashion, might I add. As in a recent article, he suggested that the Eagles could trade for Titans wide receiver Treylon Burks in exchange for a 2026 6th-round pick, citing that not only would it be funny for the Eagles to get the guy who they essentially traded to land A.J. Brown, but also that if Burks could stay healthy, he could provide some important depth at wide receiver. Now look, I can't deny that it would be pretty funny to see the Eagles get Treylon Burks, the guy who they pretty much traded to get A.J. Brown. But that said, I just don't really see any reason to make this move. I mean, sure, for next to nothing, maybe it wouldn't hurt for the Eagles to take a flyer on a former first-round pick, but as I said when discussing the Amari Cooper rumors, I'm extremely confident in Jahan Dotson as the wide receiver 3, and also, Treylon Burks has done nothing at the NFL level, and he just can't stay healthy. So, why give up any assets to get him when you don't even need him in the first place? Like, it doesn't really make that much sense. So, I don't know. Personally, I'm not very interested in this trade, and I doubt the Eagles are either, but I'm curious to know your guys' thoughts on this at least. But now, switching over to the guy who the Titans traded away to get Burks, we look at A.J. Brown and some recent comments that he just made, and I'm sure all Eagles fans are going to love to hear it. As he said, quote, "Philly has become my home, and I'm proud to say, thank God, because without him, none of this would be possible. Philly has adopted me, and I am so thankful." And as an Eagles fan, I can confidently say that we're all really thankful too, because AJ might just be the best wide receiver in franchise history, and what he's done in his 3 years here is pretty incredible. And I also love the fact that he's embraced the city and the fans, so I've said it many times before, and I'll say it again, thank you, Tennessee Titans. And also, thank you to Cooper DeJean and Reed Blankenship for giving us what I think is going to be an absolute gem of a podcast, that being the exciting mics, which they just announced. So I'm certainly going to be interested to listen to that, and I'm sure we'll get some great clips from there. But speaking of Reed Blankenship specifically, I would say now that the Goedert situation has been handled, a lot of the attention should probably switch over to Blankenship and the big decision that the Birds still have to make on him this offseason. And that decision is whether to extend him or not. Now, there is Nakobe Dean, and I don't want to just completely ignore him, but I'm just assuming that with his serious injury and also with the Birds selecting Jahad Campbell in the first round, that they're going to be comfortable just letting Dean play out the last year of his contract. But Reed, on the other hand, is in a bit of a different situation, as with him set to enter the last year of his current contract, the Ghost is clearly the top safety on the Eagles roster, and just a really good safety in general. I mean, like I said in one of my videos not too long ago, I think he's one of the more underrated players in the league, just considering the fact that he can really do everything at the safety position. I mean, he can cover, he can tackle, he can stop the run, he's a good communicator on the back end, and he can take the football away, as we've seen many times, and in crucial situations. Plus, he's a good leader as well, and is now the oldest starter in that secondary. So, I certainly think it would be a good move for the Eagles to extend him now, especially since he's not really a super well-known player around the league. So, I just feel like he wouldn't be super likely to get a big extension next offseason, and the Eagles could probably get him for a pretty good price. So, again, I definitely think the Eagles should extend Reed Blankenship, assuming they can do it for the right price. But what do you guys think? Should the Eagles extend Reed, or do you think that they should just let him play out the last year of his contract and then move on and get somebody else? Again, let me know your thoughts down in the comments. Speaking of the safety position though, I do want to briefly touch on the Eagles' latest big rumor, which, as I talked about in my last video, is that Justin Simmons really wants to sign with the Eagles, and a deal could possibly get done soon. And look, like I said in that video, I do think there is a real chance that this could happen. However, I have to make it clear, it's probably not as likely as it once was, since the Birds just drafted Drew Makuba, they obviously still have Sidney Brown, and Simmons would likely have to take a pay cut to make it happen. So again, I'm not going to rule it out. Based on what Baldy said, I think there is still a real chance, but there are also reasons to believe that it just might not make that much sense anymore. What could make sense now, though, is if the Eagles switch their focus this offseason to trying to find a trade partner for edge rusher Bryce Huff. As of course, after signing a huge 3-year, $51 million deal with the Birds in the 2024 offseason, Huff was extremely disappointing in his first season in Philly, struggling out of the gates and being essentially a non-factor through the first quarter of the season. Then he kind of did start to figure things out a bit and had a couple decent games in the middle of the year, but any sort of success was quickly derailed by a wrist injury that he ended up having surgery on. And then when he did return for the playoffs, he was a non-factor once again, and he was even a healthy scratch for the Super Bowl. So now the Eagles are faced with a big question. What do they do with Bryce Huff? I mean, do they keep him and see if he can maybe turn into something? Or do they trade him and end up eating some dead money in the process? Well, based on the Eagles' actions in the offseason, it doesn't seem like they're super committed to Huff, given that they just signed 2 edge rushers in free agency in Joshua Uche and Azeez Ojulari. Plus, they also just drafted a guy in Antoine Powell-Ryland who has the potential to become a good edge defender. And if the Eagles were to keep all those guys, the 2 starters in Nolan and Hunt and also Bryce Huff on the final roster, that would equal out to 6 edge rushers, which might be too many for that one position. And after that disappointing first year, Huff could be the odd man out. Now, could they keep him around for a second season and see if he can bounce back? Sure, I mean, I guess they could, and I don't think that's out of the realm of possibility, but they also could try and trade him, get off that contract, and also hand the keys to the young guys. Now, to actually trade Huff, the Eagles would have to eat some dead money, which would hurt, but the numbers become a lot more manageable if they were to trade him post June 1st, and that's coming up here pretty soon. So I definitely think a potential Bryce Huff trade could be something to keep your eye on. Now, the other question is, would there actually be a team out there willing to take a risk and acquire Huff's contract? And my answer to that would be, I don't fully know, but there are teams that could make sense, most notably the Falcons, who have Jeff Ulbrich as the defensive coordinator, who was Huff's defensive coordinator for his 10-sack season in New York, and also the 49ers, who have Huff's former head coach Robert Saleh as their DC. So again, this will be a situation to monitor as the offseason moves forward. But now, with all that being said, you guys know that I'm going to be continuing to cover everything that happens for the Philadelphia Eagles throughout this entire offseason, including the schedule release, which is in just under a week, and also OTAs, which are coming up in a few weeks. So if you don't want to miss any of that, then make sure you guys subscribe and you turn on notifications. That way you don't miss anything, whether it's me uploading a video or going live. Again, trust me, you're not going to want to miss it, so subscribe and turn on notifications. And also drop a like down below to show some support if you did enjoy this video, because it really does help me out a ton. See if we can get to at least 500 likes on today's video. And also leave a comment down below just regarding anything that I talked about in this video. Do you think the Eagles should trade Bryce Huff, and what team do you think he should go to? And also, if you want to watch another Eagles video going over the Dallas Goedert resolution, among other things, you can check this out right here. And now with all that being said, that's pretty much all I got for this one, guys. So thank you all so much for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.